clearly stating that the officials are not safe in giving aid to the people who are, again, suffering from this political brouhaha found in South Sudan.
Yes, it's going to affect actually the support which the ordinary people are getting, because I don't think whether there is anybody who can be accepting to stay on line of duty when such issues are not addressed in a proper manner. So you get that the aid the ordinary person is getting is going to be actually cut even by the donors themselves, because this is something which is very serious to actually the person who's even supporting you, where you don't provide security and you are not giving a clear strategy on how this is supposed to be addressed, then it's going to be unfortunate to South Africa.
All right, then let me bring this conversation to the studio here. As it stands, is there the possibility that, like some are saying, the government clearly is complicit in all of these attacks? And should these humanitarian workers be the very sacrifice to protecting the fragile political fracas in South Sudan as it stands now?
It behoves on the UN to tell the warring party that their personnel must be safe, and that if anything happens to them, they should be held accountable. I mean, it will be part of the ICC investigation at the end of the day. They must account for those 26, both parties. They cannot just disappear. It's not possible. Both parties must account for those 26 because they are not part of the conflict. They came there to help.
Exactly.
So why must they die trying to help? To help your people who you are trying to kill. Yeah? It doesn't happen. The UN must be very strong on this particular issue so that other warring parties should beware that UN officials are not involved in the conflict and nothing should happen to them. That is what I think here.
So as it stands now, are you saying that the person of the president, Riek Machar, and of course, I beg your pardon, first Vice President Riek Machar and Salva Kiir should be held accountable for not just not protecting her citizens, but humanitarian workers who are also trying to even help the citizens who are suffering in the midst of this power struggle between these two actors?
It may not be coming from the government itself. It may be from these rebel forces, the RSF. That is why the UN should be very insistent on knowing what happened to these 26. Yes, they should send out a warning that nothing. I want to assume that maybe somebody kidnapped them, they kept them somewhere, and not that they are dead. If they are, then ICC must look into this matter. All the so-called champions of this fight must be brought in. They must be brought in for crime against humanity, because that is what it amounts to. Look, granted that social workers, especially at the UN level, they know what they are going into, they know what they signed. But deliberate act of aggression is out of it. Yes, maybe in a collateral damage, something may happen, but not when it was deliberately done. You deliberately kill a social worker. You deliberately kidnap a social worker. You deliberately bring a social worker into harm's way. That is no longer collateral.
Now,
deliberate.
Barrister, let's talk about the accountability of the presidency and, of course, the first Vice President, Riek Machar, because as it stands, 250,000 persons are left without health care in the Lankine and Pierre area, worsening what's already a very deep humanitarian crisis. Shouldn't the leadership of the country be held accountable for such negligence on the path of security?
If the social workers are not willing to go there for help because of the deteriorating security problem.
Yes, that look like the negative impact that this is going to have.
Will you blame them? All they needed is to secure the place. That is all the government need to do, because I know the rebels, they want to commit as much damage as they can to put the government to shame. It is not left for the government to say no. They have returned to the capital, Khartoum. That means they are having the upper hand. So why are these people still posing a problem to the government? The government should be very decisive on this matter before more harm are done. The government should be more decisive.
All right, then. Well, again, this is one conversation that would be ongoing in South Sudan because of the power struggle between the President, Riek Machar, Salva Kiir, and the first Vice President, Riek Machar. But let me take this conversation back to Uganda, and I'm still going to stay in Sudan. The United Nations says dozens of civilians have been killed in a renewed violence in the northern South Sudan over the past 48 hours. Well, interestingly as it sounds, the alarm is surging clashes in Abernum County in the Ruweng administrative area of the country. From your position, looking at the fact that the UN is also saying, as it stands, about 23 persons have been injured coming from their records. What do you think would be the position of the presidency, noting how many persons have been killed in this consistent fight for power in South Sudan? I mean, it's the youngest democracy in Africa.
You see, David, normally what we know in the rule of law, once you're a president, you actually carry all the blame in that particular country. So in this case,
the commander in chief.
Yes, he's a commander in chief. So so there's no way a government can actually run away from this kind of conflicts, this kind of atrocities in the civilians. So I believe the UN itself should also act. You know, what I've seen in South Sudan is their internal and external kind of support, which is actually supporting both sides. And these are things which need to be addressed, because I don't think we need to support somebody to kill a human being. If you know better that this person's activities are total against the law of that country, why would you go and support? These people are acting in a way of in a way that there are other countries, there are other supporters, there are external supporters which are actually supporting their activity, which should be actually be addressed first by other partners. You come to the UN, it's good probably UN to denounce some of this kind of a support from these partners who are actually supporting the rebels, which are actually now causing this kind of. But the government sits squarely on this issue, which needs now the government to come up with the kind of policies, directions on how to deal with this kind of crisis at home.
I'm still going to stay with you, Barrister Edward. The UN also has reported that in the last 48 hours, over 1,000 persons have sought temporary shelter at the UN peacekeeping base for protection. Looking at these figures, 1,048 hours as a result of the consistent hostile attack by both forces of the RSF and the South Sudanese army. From your position, is this a surge that might increase between now and the coming days? Or do you think the government and the body language of the government, which again oppositions are saying this is not going to change, do you think the government is going to do anything visible, particularly on the part of protecting her citizens and not making them run for shelter the way they are presently?
I think I believe a government should work strictly as quick as possible to see that they can actually handle the situation. They can come up the situation. They can actually see that this kind of war, armor, civil kind rights should actually be carved. So I believe the government has all the responsibility in this at this moment to see how to resolve the matter if possible, and also probably discuss the matter with partners who actually probably react as quick as possible to see how this situation can be brought to book to the end. That is what my view would be.
All right, then let me bring it back to the studio, Mr. Darlington, as it stands. This conversation about civilians going as quick as possible to trying to get shelter within the UN base, about 1,000 of them. What does that imply of the security situation in a country where power is being shared by two gentlemen who, again, are trying to still broker peace, and they are still in that peace conversation?
You mean
Riek Machar and Salva Kiir?
They are, look, I have told the government of Sudan, they should
South Sudan.
Sorry?
South Sudan.
Yeah, the government of South Sudan, yes. They should take charge of this particular issue by telling off the external factors in this matter. They are the ones who fueling this conflict. Because if they should now confront the external enemy, the internal enemy will just die off. Somebody somewhere is behind the RSF. And that is the truth. So what is the government doing against these persons? What is the government doing against this external enemy? Except they confront this external enemy, they will continue to fund this internal enemy.
But then again, some have argued that this level of violence is localized and does not threaten the national stability of the nation. Is this feasible, owing to the fact that in less than 48 hours, 1,000 of the civilians in that particular state have found their way to the UN shelter for safety? Where are we putting the part of safety of lives when they're saying the national stability of the country is not being threatened as a result of these kind of attacks?
They cannot say so. It just, look, don't look at what they are saying. Look at what is happening. What they are saying is not synonymous with what is on ground. There is a conflict. Is that not so?
Yes.
Good. Confront that conflict. Every other thing is secondary. Confront it. And start playing with words here. Confront the conflict, and then you would have achieved the success for your people. As long as this conflict persists, the people of South Sudan will never have peace.
Now, but
their safety will not be guaranteed.
Before I jump up to another story, let's talk about the impact of these kind of attacks. The renewed violence disrupts, of course, is going to be disrupting oil production within those northern states where these attacks have been happening, and of course undermining government's revenue. Against the backdrop of these attacks, how much of an economic impact do you think this will be having on Africa's youngest democracy?
Of course, the economy is going to deteriorate further. There's no two words about it. The war will be taking a toll on the economy. They need all the money to grow. This is a young democracy that need to grow. Infrastructure. All the things they need to put in place. Now the money is going into war. The money is going into taking care of the military. The money is going into buying weapons to confront a common enemy here. And so there's no way the economy will be the same, whether from the oil or from external factors. This is money they need for positive development in South Sudan. Now the money will be going into fighting war. You need to take care of the military, the guys fighting the war. You need to buy arms and ammunition. And so the economy will be worse for it at the end of the day.
And the both parties are also going to have, would this in any way disrupt the peace deal between the both warring parties?
Of course. Because I don't even know why I should go for a peace deal with a rebel group. It's just that the government of South Sudan is very weak. Seriously, they are very weak. If they are very strong, if they are very strong and very determined, the rebels will be begging for mercy.
All right, then. Let's jump to another conversation before we truly run out of time. Zimbabwe has begun releasing nearly 4,000 inmates under a presidential amnesty in a bid to ease overcrowding in the country's prison. Well, a total of 4,305 prisoners, including 223 women, are set to be released under the clemency order. Well, Mr. Darlington, let's have this conversation. The clemency order is something that, let me use the word we're a bit used to, because Nigeria also wanted to have such. But looking at the fact that some are saying that this is more like a plan on the part of President Emerson Mnangagwa's ploy to still stay in office till 2030. You would also recall that the conversation about his stay in power as tweaking the constitution is still in the front burner of the parliament in Zimbabwe. What do you make of this, basically?
Whenever a government wants to win election or stay in power, they always do one thing or the other to placate the people.
Including using the clemency law?
Yes, to buy the vote or the heart of the people. It happens most times. I think Joe Biden did it in America. Yes, he did it. And then even canceled some of the loan funds, student loan funds. So, they must find one thing or the other. But in that of Zimbabwe, it is a welcome development because most of them shouldn't have been in prison in the first place. Maybe the opponent put them there, just to punish them for unnecessarily. So if this man has decided to release them, but there should be no condition. It should not be conditional. It is something that you ought to do that you are doing. You should not attach it to any other thing.
All right, then.
That's what because if you do, the next person that may take over from you may return them back. Yes, if it was not properly done and you discover that you did it for your political gain, it may backfire. That's why whenever you are doing such a thing, make sure that it is well positioned under the law.
All right, then. Let me take this conversation to Uganda, and of course, we'll wrap up this conversation from here. Barrister Edward, well, same conversation about clemency law as being carried out by the president. Some are saying that this is the presidency trying to just play a very trickish move to wanting to quell down the tension about his staying in power till 2030. Just opposing that situation with, of course, the story coming from your country where the youth-led pressure group within the ruling NRM party is criticizing what it calls the growing trend of recruiting opposition politicians into the party and rewarding them with government position. The two stories together in 1 minute. Help us make sense of it.
Okay, before I even go to that, David, there's this issue of South Sudan. Recently, the Kenyan government was actually declared being issuing passports to the RSF rebels. It should be South Sudan should take action by actually communicating officially to Kenyan government so that this thing should stop. Getting back to your question on we are talking of Zimbabwe, where the crowding, but I don't think whether that would be the reason the government should actually release the prisoners. Facilities can always be expanded on the other hand. If indeed they are crowded, then it means that the growth of the country should also be in question. It should be a political kind of a question, which probably that is the reason why. Coming to Uganda, you get that every government, Museveni is still buying what we call legitimacy. So the only way is for him to actually give a credit, please the opposition to see that they get these jobs. And obviously, these people are both. These are not probably even the real people we will be talking about. Museveni should be talking at this moment, see ways of creating a harmony with the opposition leader whom they have chased away from the country. So all that is just political. We are not yet sure of such claims. But the reality is Museveni should actually reach to the opposition leader and they discuss on the table issues concerning Uganda.
All right, then. Thank you so very much, Barrister Edward Okwaro Matakinye, human rights activist and, of course, legal practitioner in Uganda. Thank you so very much for joining the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also with us in the studio here, Mr. Darlington Agumo, lawyer and, of course, public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Thank you so very much for being here. We take